It's very strange. Hello, everyone. I was just talking to myself about my hair, as I do every single day. It's my constant battle. How are you? Good morning. It is Thursday. It's nearly the weekend. Who'd have believed it? Honestly, the weeks are just flying by. The best thing is it's not raining. The sun is shining here in Sussex. That should be a song. Write a song called "The Sun is Shining Here in Sussex." It's not easy to say. We have a great session coming up with you in a moment. It's our first in like a series of theatre design, which we're really excited about. We have done directing, we've done producing, we've done casting directors, actors, and now we're into the design. And I hope to get in stage management as well, so we can cover that. We've done, yesterday we had Sam Griffiths talking about being a promoter, so another area, it's like producing, but in the music industry. So we're getting there. We're covering all these angles, I feel. What else do we have coming up today? Okay, we have Vocal Health Check with Rhiannon Jenkins at 12 o'clock. We have Learning Complex Music with Connor Tompkinson. I wish I'd had that session about 25 years ago. Beginners Intermediate Tap with Albie Brooks. And then we finish off, the wonderful Eddie Slattery is back here with a Jive Latin class. So another full-packed day we have here. A couple of things to talk about. Halfway through October, we are doing our coffee mornings. Now, what's interesting is I see on Twitter everyone promoting or trying to promote. How do I promote? How do I get out there? I want to tell everyone about my cabaret. We are giving you the opportunity to come on here. 30 minutes, mug of tea. What it is, if you show that you're in, maybe you've just done a short film, a feature film, and you want to promote it, you can come on the platform, chat with us for 30 minutes and tell us all about it. Email us, connect@collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk and put coffee mornings in the subject box. Also, next week, we will be starting a little later on Monday and Tuesday. We'll be starting at 3 p.m. and going through to 11 p.m. Why? Because we have got a Broadway takeover. We have teamed up with RWS Entertainment and Broadway Dreams over in America, and we are bringing you Broadway casting directors and performers and choreographers and directors who will be working here on the CCI with you all the way from America. That is one of the most exciting things for us. So spread the word. We will be spreading all the socials about it, and you'll be able to head over to the website to check all that information. But Broadway is coming, baby. That's all I have to say. Also, the other thing, we are doing CCI Live. I know you know about this. This is amazing. Our mailing list has grown unbelievably. So what is that? On the 14th and 15th of November. Now, we're still planning ahead with it, although it is against the government regulations. But we're still promoting it right now because who knows what will happen in a week, right? So at this time, at this moment, we're still going to go ahead. And then if we can't do it, we can't do it. But we will do everything we can to try and make that work. 14th and 15th of November, we have teamed up with Talent Artistic Group, and we are using their insanely beautiful studios at Luton Hoo. They are remarkable. And by the way, if you're a theatre producer out there and you need space outside of London because it's so difficult to socially distance in London, Talent Artistic Group, the Granary, that's where you need to be right now. It's already booking up fast. I know it's already going to be the space for the West End and the Montaus to start using for rehearsals, undoubtedly. So it's there for you. They're massive studios. We can socially distance. Some of the CCI wonderful practitioners will be there teaching you live. You can't touch them, but you'll want to. And they will be live, but socially distanced. Very limited numbers per class, but we hope we can get that going, but we'll see. Maybe we can't. But if you are interested, connect@collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk and pop mailing list in the subject box. So coffee morning to come and chat about your production, mailing list if you're interested in CCI Live. Trust me, our mailing list folder is very full, so get onto that now. Broadway is coming next week. Let's bring in Stewart Charlesworth. We're going to talk all about design. Hello.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
I am good. I've just hung the washing up, so you know, I'm free as a bird, as it were.
Hung the washing up. I managed to sort of get myself a coffee, which I've now seen a cat has walked over and left a hair in. Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Toes. It's just what happens, isn't it? I remember when I didn't have didn't have cats, and I go around to people's houses, I was like, oh God, there's fur everywhere. I mean, can't they clean this? Hell no, if you have a long-haired cat, you clean it, you turn around, and they're lying there, sort of giving you that smug look of, here you go, daddy.
Yeah.
Look at this. Shedding. Unbelievable. So I give up now. I think I've eaten more cat hairs in this last year than anything else. So tell us all about Mr. Stewart J. Charlesworth. Now, I've known you for over 20 years. Can that be a thing?
I was trying to think of this yesterday, and I think it probably would have been around about 2004, 5, I think, is when I actually met you. I was 4 at the time. No. So yeah, 2004. So yeah, quite a few years. Indeed.
That is unbelievable. I just, I can't. It's just life is going in. Tell us where it all started for you. So right back, how do you have theatrical family? Are you the first? I'm certainly the first, although my mother was very theatrical in the Andra and just on a daily basis. But tell me about that.
So I don't come from a theatrical family on my side of the family, but both my parents sing and have extremely good voices, and my mum plays the guitar and the piano. So music was always quite a big part of our lives. I grew up in a sort of a church family as well, so there was a lot of music involved in that as well. My dad's sisters, the other side of my family, are very, very theatrical. So we have my aunt was the house manager of our theatre, town theatre, for 35 years. My cousin is a Steadicam operator, and my uncle was a sound engineer for the BBC. And all sorts of stuff. So he still has his studio. He's in his 80s now, but he has a studio in his loft that has every sound effect known to man, and he has mixed sound for pretty much every show, sound effects for film, TV, and all sorts of stuff. So that side was always there. But I suppose I first discovered theatre properly when I was 13, and it was my mum's birthday, and we actually went to London, I think for the first time, and we saw Starlight Express.
I love it.
To be honest, as a 13-year-old boy who loved spectacle, trains, engineering, and all of that sort of stuff, and music and theatre, that's basically when it happened. And I remember coming out of the theatre and just turning to my mum and dad and saying, I want to do that. And my mum sort of going, do what, dear? And I'm like, what I just saw in there. And you could see them going, right, okay. So that's where it started. It started from sort of John Napier's design, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and just being enveloped in what essentially is almost like an immersive piece of theatre. I think in actual fact,
one of the first kind of West End size productions that was classed as immersive theatre.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think by the time Starlight closed, I'd seen it about 10 times, because they used to do the standing seats at the back.
That's right.
And it would be amazing, because right at the very end, all the way through the show, they'd high five you as they sort of skated past. And just for me, that was incredible. And then from there, I joined my local youth amateur theatre, Chelmsford Young Generation Amateur Musical Society, SIGAMS, which is still going strong today. And from there, also did a load of stuff with my the older amateur group, K-Odds, as well as doing a load of stuff with the Chelmsford Old Court Theatre, which is like a really small, almost studio theatre, which is really fantastic. But again, all sort of amateur stuff. And it was incredible. Like that feeling of being on a stage. The very first show I ever did as an amateur was Barnum.
Brilliant.
I mean, with the whole
oh my God.
And the thing, and all of the stuff. And I remember being like a 14-year-old and just being blown away by this whole thing, and being always just fascinated by the costume side of thing and the design side of things. And also, you mentioned stage management in your opening and your opening spiel,
Yeah.
and just watching this backstage team work miracles with just to create these sort of spaces. So that from there, I then started to I did that as a performer. And then, but always just drawing and designing and sketching things and building things. I've been an avid model maker my entire life. I still am. And so, you know, building.
I love doing the model airplanes. That was my big thing when I was a kid. I was obsessed with them. Yeah.
We just got through lockdown with my other half building Airfix ships, because he'd reached that point where he was so bored. He has no patience, but he was like, he's sat there building model Airfix ships. So yeah, I all the way through school, I designed shows, performed in them, did all of that. And then when it came to my A-levels, I was the first, I'm just going to put this in there. Yeah, why not? Self-promotion. I was the first boy to receive an A at A-level drama through just doing design. I did bits of acting, but I designed. And then when I went to, you know, find out what I was going to do next, I went, I want to go and explore this and do this and everything. And they all went, okay, fine. Go to drama school as a performer. And I was like, okay. And I don't know what it was, but I just went as a performer because apparently that's what you did. And so I went to Mountview, and I got a scholarship to Mountview for the performing for the musical theatre course, and did my 3 years there. But still, all the way through it, I was designing stuff. I did a huge open air Pride and Prejudice. I did a Streetcar Named Desire. I was designing all of these things, and then graduated Mountview and went into the world as a performer. And I think I stopped performing. So I graduated in 2004, and I stopped performing professionally and properly, like put a line under it, in 2012. So I had quite a good run, saw the world, did loads of fun things. But again, I remember designing the Wiz for Upstairs at the Gatehouse on the back of the tour bus for Rocky Horror European Tour. That's still to this day one of my resounding memories.
The great thing though about going and being a performer, and I imagine they did this because with that, and with actually having a career as a performer and doing tours and going away and doing all that kind of stuff, you would have absorbed like worldly designs as well, I would imagine, you know, as well as being on sets and wearing costumes from other designers. I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but you probably got more experience of design from being in those costumes on those stages and seeing a much more eclectic mix of world, you know, because I know you worked on ships as well, right? And I did. I worked on that. Learned all about that and designing for moving, you know, stage and by being on it, rather than going down the design route, which may have, like, you know, if you'd gone to university and did design. So do you feel that was actually worked out as a really good thing? Because you already had the craft in design, but do you feel that helped in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things. So I just designed just a couple of years back. I designed set and costumes for a new show on P&O, based on Dusty Springfield, and it was really great for me because I was able to come at it first and foremost as a designer, because that's what I was employed to do. But actually, secondly, having been on a ship and witnessed the turnaround and witnessed the amount of battering that they take, and just knowing the restrictions that you would face in a normal venue, and then all of the added stuff that you need to take into consideration when you're then doing a ship show. And that spans all the things. That spans from set and automation down to costume and down to, you know, simple things like, you know, what certain things are made out of, so that you can wash them as opposed to having to dry clean them. You know, So
I did 13 contracts, and I don't think I did one contract where I went, this person has worked on a ship. The costumes were like, you're designing for like, what, for dry cleaning, And when they dry clean on ships, it is the most severe dry clean imaginable. But also design. You know, I remember thinking to myself, if and when I produce, I want a crew from a ship. That's the crew I want to be my crew in theatre, because their ability to problem solve, it was phenomenal, and the way they worked and those sets, packing them down, because I don't know if anyone watching doesn't realise, but a show would go on one night and then there'd be something on the next night, but actually something on the next daytime, then something that night that was different, then the next day there was something different, and every day they would be in putting up set, taking down set, putting up something else, taking it out, and that was their process. I mean, the amount they worked was unbelievable, but their ability to pack these sets away. And I just thought that so many times I would look at the design and go, why did this designer create something that can literally break if you flick it? That's madness. Do you know what I mean? Like, for a ship, it's crazy. So you would have experienced all of that as a performer. So great knowledge to have.
And I mean, it's worth putting out there now, actually, that a lot of, from a costume point of view, especially, a lot of the bigger ships now do have wardrobe teams on them. And I know when you and I worked on the same ships with the same company, there was no wardrobe team at all.
When I got to the Norwegian cruise line, that's when they had wardrobe teams, which was amazing. We're like, oh, fantastic! So they could maintain those costumes. Up to then, it was me. And I'll tell you what, along with stage management, sewing is not like want me to sew anything.
No, I remember one of the things that I really took away from the QM2 contract, actually, was the way that the stuff was made and altered, which was quite fascinating for me. And actually, we had wigs. You probably know them well. That were the sort of 18th century big Rococo powdered ones, and they were made using what we call crin, which is plastic tube that you can see through. And it was incredible, because I thought, actually, that's such an innovative solution to the fact that you're doing an 18th century piece with this sort of really kind of futuristic modern twist, but you know in advance that you're not going to have someone on who's going to be able to, you know, whip up 12 quick powdered wigs, stick them in rollers, bake them, and have them ready for that evening. So, you know, there was already kind of interesting ways that stuff was designed. And just like you say, the fact that it has to pack down into almost sort of like IKEA flat pack furniture and then just spring up in seconds.
Pop up, go up into the rafters or under the stage.
Yeah.
So you performed for around 12 years. Was The Wiz your first design production then, in a professional kind of?
Yes, actually, in a professional capacity, The Wiz was the first pro production that I did for Upstairs at the Gatehouse, and I didn't really think about it at the time. I just went and did it. And it's really interesting. It wasn't until about 2009 that I realized that I was just doing loads and loads and loads of design stuff. And it never really dawned on me, but I was also doing it and I was being paid to do it as well. And I think with Upstairs at the Gatehouse, I think I probably did, about 7 or 8 shows.
Yeah, brilliant.
For Upstairs at the Gatehouse, and that's not just working for the team that run the Gatehouse, but also like external companies that came in and did stuff. So it was my first experience.
Did you do whole or side by Sondheim? Did you do a show?
Side by side. Yeah, I did.
Side by side, yeah, and I had that. I had that wonderful butterfly feather.
Butterfly wings, absolutely, yeah. That was the one with the joys of the very first light up corset that I think I've ever done. I
enjoyed wearing it.
It was, like I said, it wasn't until later down the line when I realised that I have nothing against performing and it was fine and I did it, but it was never really what I wanted to do. But what I wanted to do was design. And so I took the step, like I said, in 2012 to stop performing. And I remember writing the email to my then agent, who's been, even now is still so supportive and fantastic. and just saying, I need to do this. I need to step away from the performing side of things and really actually focus on the design, because I think that seems to be where I'm going. That seems to be where life is pushing me. And yeah, so that's where it happened. And I remember sending the email and just feeling this sort of cathartic, whatever the word is. I just felt relief almost.
Yeah.
Going, oh right, okay. Oh right, I better go and do something. What am I going to do? So yeah, that's when that started.
So when you so that happened, and then you were like, right, I'm no longer an actor, I am a designer. I mean, that must have been quite strange, kind of still waiting for the auditions to come in, but they didn't, because that's not what you did anymore. How did you, now, you know, you've been working already as a designer for what seems to be about 3 years or so, which is amazing. And that is, you know, a great way. And we say a lot about, you know, go and intern, go and trial. If you want to do a change of career, really go and learn about stuff, and it's a great way, or get out and do it yourself, but over that transition period, which is great. What was then, now you're out in the world and, you know, you're kind of standing there shirtless in the wind, as it may be, did you feel a pressure then to get work? Did it feel very different then, or did you leave but you already had a project to work on so you could invite other directors and producers too? How did that transition happen?
It went really well, actually. Like I said, when I left the performing side of things, I did just sort of feel this real kind of sense of calm over the whole situation. And for once, I realized that I was kind of in control of my own destiny, as it were. Yeah. I wasn't waiting for the phone to ring. I was actually going out and having conversations in a different way than if you are an actor and you're waiting for your agent to call you. As a designer, you and I think in any of those sort of design capacities or creative aspects, you just find yourself being a lot more proactive. But at the same time, you can almost see the fruits of your labors, as it were, because you know, I think sometimes from a performer's point of view, you can continually put yourself out there and do all of those things, but feel like there's not a lot of control as to how you kind of harvest that power almost. And whereas for us, it's a bit more, you go out there, you make those connections, and they're one-on-one connections really with directors, with producers, with choreographers. They're all very sort of small encounters. And so I just felt that everything just sort of flowed quite nicely after that. Yeah, you know, we had ups and downs as everyone does. But yeah, it's kind of, it's still scary. Of course, it's still scary because you're still, you know, you're still in control of your own destination, your own path. But it's a different sense. It's slightly less petrifying, I think, is the only words I could use.
So, first design job was what pressures did you put on yourself with that? Because I feel that there's always that, it's the same with everything that you do the first time, or even the 10th time. Certainly when it's your own business, we certainly do it. Put pressures on yourself to be precise and to make sure you nail it. We'll come on to all the other stuff you've done, but that very first production, and obviously budgets are fairly limited on fringe production as they are. I mean, we'll talk about budget as well in a minute. But how did you? Like, how did you rein it in for yourself to go, wow, I've got this job, I want to do this. So for example, I directed a play a long time ago now called Best Friends, and it was at the Hen and Chickens Theatre. And it's a very small space, and I wanted to create a flat. And we had this amazing designer, and he was like, right, I can put laminate wood flooring down. I was like, no. He's like, oh, okay, I can do this. I was like, we've got 500 quid. And he's like, right. And he spent the night painting wooden floorboards. That's what he did. And I came in and I freaked out the first time. I went, we don't have the money for this. Where did you get? He was like, it's painting, darling. I was like, oh my God. And he had painted the whole floor black to start with. and then he painted these floorboards on. It was unbelievable, the job that he did. And it's that workaround. Now, he'd had a lot of experience. How did you find those workarounds? How did you work with the budget? How did you get the design that you wanted in that space, within budget, all of that kind of stuff on that first outing?
So I think this comes back to where I really started at the age of 14. And being the sponge that I am, I would basically soak up everything from everywhere, and I would watch and I would learn, and I would try. I would constantly be in I was very lucky with my amateur company because they have a huge headquarters building. It's massive. It's like an aircraft hangar, and a third of it is this massive rehearsal space, and then the other 2/3 is like the scenic shop and the prop store and the wardrobe. Wow. And so I would be forever going in and watching them and learning them. My dad's also a joiner. He's a carpenter and joiner by trade. Right. So I have a little bit of knowledge about that side of things, though please don't ever please don't ask me to build flattage. Go. Hate it. No, I don't hate it. It's fine, but it's just one of those things. So yeah, I'd seen people create magic on nothing, and especially when I went to my one of the other companies that I was a member of, the Old Court, which, like I said, was this old church hall with a stage, sort of Victorian church hall with a stage in it, and they did some phenomenal stuff there, just from thinking differently. And sort of conversations with the director, conversations with the choreographer, saying, I know this is what you want in your vision. However, have you considered this? Or, can we take that strand from your idea and work with that? Because actually we have this that was in stock from a show a few years back that we could repurpose. So I think going into any job, I've always kind of got that as my basis of going, well, actually just take the idea and just work around it, think outside the box. It's a bit of a cliched saying, I think, nowadays, but it's so true that just because something is set as the script says it's set doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need to do. And I think those conversations that you then have with the team, with the director and everything, that you can start to really grow some ideas that will will be fantastic. And, people might end up with a different idea from where they started, but actually that result will be 100 times better than what you started with. With the Wiz, I only did the costume design for the Wiz. So that was kind of quite a nice introduction for me, because I was only doing half what I considered to be my job. And it's also a thing that I know really, really well. So I find costume design quite simple to do, not simple to do, but quite easy to do. And they wanted a 1970s feel. And so the first thing I did was do a recce around the shops quickly, looking at what was there, photographing everything. Because, of course, this was back in the time. Oh, how old do I sound there? But this was back in the time where if you took your phone out in a shop and took a photograph of a garment, you get a security guard come over and be like, no, you can't do that. So you'd be like, just trying to snap pictures. And then I started my design, and I still do this now. So, and it's when I teach the same thing. I'm like, for me, the first time you do that design or you lay your ideas out, you should work with as few limitations as possible. You should literally get every idea, no matter how crazy it is, out onto a page in any way you can. Because if you start from a place of going, I can't do that, that's not going to work, then
you don't get anywhere, do you?
You don't get anywhere, exactly. You've got to go. A very dear, close friend of mine once said very wisely, you can't cut from nothing. And you can't. So when you should literally lay out all your, I laid out my sort of research boards and everything, and it just covered it in stuff, and then designed this show. And what I found was really interesting was that I was able to get what I designed because of the recce that I'd done on the shops. I'd had a little bit of a look. I mean, online, we're talking, what year would it have been? 2000. Online wasn't really a thing then. So, and of course you're very resourceful when you have no money and you're starting out. So you're not afraid of going out and being like, can I borrow that? Can I borrow that?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that you've got that in your lounge. Can I?
I stage managed a production at the Wimbledon Studio Theatre for a Charles Miller piece, and I was awful at it. It was the worst thing I've ever done. But I was good at so Fenton Gray, who was producing, was like, I was like, what's the budget for £50? I was like, fabulous. For costumes and set, and I was like, brilliant, £50. So that made what I was really good at was getting all the stuff for free. So I went to like a carpet shop and said, I need like a rug to create a living. He was like, oh, we're cleaning out an office down the road if you run down there now. And I turned up with a roll of carpet from an office. It was my problem was I was so successful at that. When I like handed people, I was like, Wellington boots. They're like, I feel my character should have yellow ones. I was like, here you go. Are you kidding me? You'll take the black ones and you'll be happy with them. You know, I feel my character should have yellow ones. But I loved that kind of whole but then all you're doing, you'd be out for a pint with friends and you're like looking at things going, maybe I could probably borrow that, and it just became that. So the resourcefulness, I think, is a really important thing to learn.
Pubs are the worst ones, especially now, because of course pubs are they're very eclectic nowadays and full of stuff, and you're forever going in and being like, oh, I like that. Oh, can I put
that sword?
It's always wingback armchairs. We've got one actually down the road from us, and I'm like, every time I walk past it, I'm there going, I could really have used that about 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. All of these times. But the other thing as well that I think when you start out, it's really good to basically be fearless. And even now, it's a massive thing about doing what we do. It is really true what they say is that the worst someone can say is no, and that's not really going to hurt. To be honest. And you'll be amazed at when you explain what you're doing to people that aren't in our industry, they'll get really excited by it and they'll get really interested in it. And if you can sell that as a thing, then people will normally come on board and be more than willing to assist in whatever way they can. And that's always been my experience as well. And the great thing as well, when you start off, it's those people that you start with that as you continue down your path in life and in your career, you'll still keep going back to them all the time. And you'll know them by name, and you'll know when their birthdays are, and you know when their kids are starting school, and you'll start that amazing conversation that will last for decades, and it will reap rewards in both ways. My military supplier, Paul, and his wife Mel, I went to them with an absolutely huge emergency, like mega emergency, about 10 years ago. And we've been friends ever since. And he's the first person I call about anything to do with uniform. And he'll always be like, oh, well, I don't think I've got anything in stock at the moment, but we're going out buying on Saturday and I'll look for you. And then, lo and behold, 9 times out of 10, the Wednesday afterwards, I'll get a phone call from him saying, "Oh, I couldn't find exactly what you wanted, but have you considered this 1987 Prussian police uniform from the?" And I'll be like, "No, but I love it." That's how it is. It's all as in life. Everything is about connecting with people and sort of keeping everyone connected, as it were.
Before I go on to the next stage, I think. Also, something which what you're touching on is to don't be afraid to ask for help either from other people, because actually that, like you say, in those relationships, and that's actually what we're built to do, is to help people. Weirdly, we are not built as humans to destroy. We're built to help. And I remember this wonderful massive psychological testing was done on happiness, and they tested 1,000 people on whatever it was. Is it a child? Is it money? Blah blah. And actually, it's giving. The truth to happiness. The only time anyone was truthfully happy was when they were giving to somebody else for no return. And always remember that. Don't take the mickey out of it, but certainly, and always repay it eventually. But that the reward from asking someone help their reward is being able to help you. And like I say, if they say no, it generally, as a rule, whenever we've asked for help for someone, it's not been like a horrible no. It's like, I'm just unable to at this time.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this person, they might be able to, and that's how you build those relationships up, right?
Absolutely. I love what you just picked up on there, because it's something that I try and instill in people, teams, and when I'm teaching and so on, is I think a lot of the time when you're starting out, you are afraid to ask for help because it shows weakness, and it really doesn't. And all I ever say, I mean, what I say to the teams that I work with, I'm like, I don't actually care what the problem is. I really don't. I'd much rather that you just came to me and asked me, or said, I'm not really sure what to do here, and I will happily tell you what I think, or help you in any way that I can. A couple of reasons for that. Firstly, is a cost thing, is the fact that the longer something goes on without someone asking for help, it becomes very expensive. It can become very expensive, but more so is because if I'm given the time, say you've got a project due in 2 weeks, and someone comes to you in 2 days, in 2 days, and says, I'm struggling with this. That gives me time. That gives me like a week and a half to work with that person to solve it. However, if you come to me 2 days before the deadline and say, I haven't been able to do anything you asked, it puts everyone in a really difficult predicament. And I think it is difficult as humans, human beings, to ask for help in certain things, especially when it comes to a professional point of view, because you might deem that it's sort of seen as, oh, you don't quite know what you're doing. But actually, I have a lot of respect when people come to me and say, I know you've asked me to do this, and I know you've told me, and I know you've given me these list of things, but I'm still struggling with this, this, and this. And I'm like, fine, let's solve it. Because it might be something that I'm doing. It might be like the universe's way of saying that something that I want to do isn't actually working. So that's it.
There's absolutely. And the other thing about it is that a term that's called managing up, which is managing people's expectations of you in terms of what they want over what is potentially deliverable. Now, that is not you being, a negative nanny kind of going, well, I don't think we can do that. It's about advising your client, or whoever it is you're working with, to say, listen, absolutely, we will do everything we can. I just want to highlight to you that this is difficult when you have a budget of £1 million, never mind a budget of 10,000. So this is what we're striving for. But I just want to highlight that now. So if you have that conversation early on and don't sit there silent going, there's no way we can do this, and you don't say anything, and you get everything signed off going, yes, all you do is cause yourself stress, and all you do is put yourself in a position where you get to that. You're going to have that conversation, because as a professional, it's not deliverable.
Yeah.
So you're going to do everything you can, but you've got to be upfront. And again, it's an important part of that relationship building with whoever you're working with. And quite frankly, if they don't see it and they don't want to work with that, then it's probably a relationship that's never going to work anyway.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, I think you've touched on another thing as well that I always put forward when I'm sort of mentoring or teaching, and that is the whole thing of just of communication, and just constantly communicating. And I know that a lot of, again, this is from personal experience, and I've learned the hard way, and I can probably list about 20 designers that have also, and people, costume supervisors that have also learned the hard way. If you stay silent when you know that something isn't quite right, then it's much harder to do later down the line. It's much harder to confront that problem later down the line.
Yeah.
But on a couple of positive things on that is the fact that actually, if you're in a production meeting and you don't fully understand something, then if read the room, but if you feel that you want to know more, then ask the question, because the asking of that question could in turn lead to a whole load of other avenues being opened up. Yeah. It could be actually someone finally goes, oh, hang on a second, I've just got that. I've just got what you're trying to do now. Hang on, if we move that round there, the whole thing will flow. Great, fantastic. And I always say, with from a professional point of view, is communicate as much as you can until the person you're communicating with tells you to stop.
Yeah,
that's the way that I am, because
that's how we work. We always say at the beginning, or they go, oh yeah, communication, and then they're like, oh okay, that is real communication. I see. So it will be a, hi everyone, just to let you know, this hasn't happened yet, but we're hoping to get an answer within the next couple of days, rather than waiting for them to go, have we got that answer yet?
Yeah,
and then you're defensive by answering it. We're like, no, we haven't got there yet. This will happen, blah, blah, blah. And you preempt everything through communication. I think it's such a cathartic thing.
Yeah, I just sent, funny enough, an email yesterday for a project that I'm doing at Christmas, and it was to my lovely the head of production and everything, and I was like, look, this might be a little bit much, but I'm now sending you the entire props list for this show. You've probably got it, but having done the show twice, I'm going to now highlight all of the things that I know are going to probably be an issue. They might not need that email, but I know from my point of view that I've communicated to that other person. And actually, I've gone and all the way through. I said, look, if you need me to help with this, or if you want some clarification on this, then absolutely let me know. Because I think at the end of the day, as I said before, it's harder to try and sort all of that stuff out when you're midway through the rehearsal process or halfway through tech than it is like at the white card stage, or even at the design presentation, or at any of those points. You can quite easily move things or change things, or adapt things.
There's also a thing about if you preempt these things, although it might be frustrating for somebody on the other end to go, I'm not dealing with that yet, blah blah blah. The wonderful thing is they will come to that point and they don't have to chase you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're like, that has already been done. Great, I'm not there yet. My brain, do I have to, I can't answer this right now. And you're like, no, don't want an answer. Just want you to know where we are. That's all. This is where it is. And then great. And then it gets to that point and they're not chasing you. They're not asking for it. Because one of the worst things, I think, well, not worst things, but one of the things that, is you've done all this work and it's all there ready to go. And you're sitting there and they're like, Hyde, and they get to a point in their workload where they're like, oh, I haven't had X. And they go, Hyde, sorry, we haven't had X yet. Can we have that? And then you're replying on the back foot going, oh, yes, I've done that. I just didn't realize that you wanted it. And then you get to that, oh, just send.
Yeah.
Chase, and you're all good to go. And you're ahead of the game.
Absolutely, it is. I can imagine if anyone is watching this that's worked with me, especially from a teaching point of view, will be just rolling their eyes at the words communicate.
If you are watching and you would like to ask Stewart any questions about design, theatre design, costume design, please do that now. There is if you subscribe, there's a comments box. Please write in, even say hi, whatever you want, and we will come to those questions. If you're watching as a non-subscriber, I still don't know why that is. 30% of our watchers are still non-subscribers. Hit the button, and then you can ask Stewart questions, even if you unsubscribe afterwards. Why you do that, I don't know. So feel free to do that. Don't save them to the end, because sometimes there's a delay. You can be like, question, you've sent it, but there is a bit of a delay to us getting it. So from the whiz, now you've come on. What was your first I'm a designer job? So you've now, I'm not an actor anymore, I'm a designer. What was it? What was your first one?
Oh goodness, off the top of my head, I'm going to say, I'm going to use Carousel at the Arcola, actually, which we did in 2014. That was kind of the moment of, oh, right, okay, great. It was a big project. It was an ambitious project. It was a phenomenal project. It was a stressful project. I look back at it just with so much love now, but at the time there were moments when I was like this. But no, I think it was that, because we basically took this monolith of a musical and stripped it down to its bare bones. Interestingly, not from a sort of a budgetary point of view, or because we had to for cost, just purely because of the story that was being told, which I really liked. And actually, if anyone saw our version, that version of Carousel at the Arcola, I think that's what really came across, was the fact that the story, it was more about the storyline that we were trying to show, as opposed to the spectacle of, the New England coastline and this gigantic carousel and everything. But I think that for me was probably
did you do costume and set? What did you do?
I did. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, now I think since probably about 2009, I think I've basically done set and costume design in hand. Although I'll get onto one of the massive things I did a little bit later on, but yeah, that was just costume. But for the most part, it's set and costume. And I remember freaking out about doing Carousel, like properly freaking out, because of course you've got in our living memory, you've got the Trevor Nunn Nationals version, which was breathtaking. You've got the ones that have been at the Savoy, all of these ones. And as such, I really struggled. I won't lie, I really struggled with coming up with an idea for it, like a concept for it. We'd already made the decision that we were going to set it in 1929, which was a result of one of those things where I wasn't afraid to put my hand up and ask a question and make a suggestion, because I just watched Carnival, the HBO series Carnival, which was set in 1929 in the Dust Bowl, right. Traveling sort of carnival troupe, and it really hit home. And I remember going, we need to do something with it. If we do like 1870s bustle dresses, it's going to look a bit naff. So why don't we, and the story was so human that they wanted to tell. I'm like, why don't we take it to this era? Everything fits in beautifully.
One of the shows that still to this day I cry at 2 points. I have yet to not cry at 2 points. One being obviously You'll Never Walk Alone, and the second is where she says, "Mama, is it possible that someone hits you and you don't feel it?"
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, child abuse. Wow, but okay. And it's like, I'm filling up now, just that sensitive, and she just holds a child and she's like, that it is, it's still to this day one of my favorite musicals, because of it tackled some of the hardest and put it into a musical and brilliant by making it look all like glitzy and beautiful. And look at the colours, and isn't it? Oh, we're going to a clam bake and all this. And they drew them in, and then they bashed them in the face with some of the hardest topics that still people struggle to tell on stage.
Yeah, and I think that
abuse to women, first murder, the first ballet in a musical, and what that meant about the coming of age and all of that, all of it. You're just like, oh my God! It's still to this day, it's one of the most.
There is pieces. There's a lot. There is a huge amount to deconstruct in that, and what the rehearsal process for it was fascinating. And I think anyone who was involved in that creative process will tell you that a lot of the chat within the rehearsal room was about dealing with a lot of the issues that the text brings. I mean, if you think about it, it's not, Carousel wasn't written as Carousel. It's actually based on forgive me if I get this wrong, a 1920 play text called Lillian. So it was actually even earlier that this was being discussed. And I think that's the thing about it, is it's an inherently human tale. Oh yeah. It's so human. And one of the things about it is, yes, it does deal with a lot of hard-hitting issues. And there are moments where, some people might disagree with the way that it's handled from a textual point of view, but actually these things do happen. They still happen. And people deal with them in different ways, and people have different ways of thinking about them. And the people who are living them in that moment, they deal with them in the way that they deal with them. And I think Julie is a really fascinating character in that respect, because she deals with what she's going through in the way that she does, in a very human way.
Even the soliloquy that he sings about his boy that he's going to have, it's got to be a boy. And then if it's a girl, and his ability to just not comprehend and certainly not. He knows he doesn't have a clue how he's going to handle that. He hasn't got an iota. If it's a girl, I don't have the ability to deal with adult women. How on earth am I going to deal with a child that's
Absolutely
a girl, and how do I protect her, and all these things, that because he knows who he is and how he has been through his life with women and so on and so forth, and just it's so rich. Like I always thought that if I was ever educated enough to do a PhD, it would literally be on that one show. It would be, you could write books and books and books and books and books about that one show.
Yeah, I think one of the incredible things about working on it now, or not now, but back in 2014, was that we just started to really have those conversations about mental health and about people's, about people's minds and everything. Yeah. And so it was lovely to watch the team explore these characters as real human beings, and to also look at the reasoning why certain behaviors were the way that they were. And, Billy Bigelow's, his story, or his kind of almost the backstory that was created for him, or, from what was in the text and what Tim Rodgers and Luke, the director, sort of came up with, was devastating, because, in order to kind of portray this fully rounded character, they went really deep into it, and it was sort of actually it was very, very sad. Not to excuse what he did, but it's just it's interesting to sort of look at his reasoning for reacting in the way that he does, and sort of look at that backstory, and then the effect that has on Louise and everything after it. But
how is an opening night for a designer? Because as a director, I sat there. I remember my first play that I ever directed, and I sat there with a pad and pen. And I tell you, at the end of it, there was not one word written down. It was just covered in sweat, because I just sat there and went, like, the whole time, like, oh. And if an actor took a millisecond beat longer than they had done in rehearsal, I was like,
that's it.
All of this. What is it like for a designer sitting there and seeing maybe something isn't quite, or that costume, they haven't quite got that button done up, or they haven't quite, what is that? How is that?
I think it's always going to be. Have I lost you? Oh,
no, you're there. You're still there.
Oh, that's my fault. I think it's always very difficult as a designer or any creative, I think, to watch a show. It is. It's really hard, because you're there because you know in effect that a quick change is coming up, or that quick set change is coming up, and you're not quite sure, and you spend most of your time going, please God, please just find the spot where you need to be, just get that chair on the right spot, please, because if you don't, then the whole thing will just be ruined. I remember it was a couple of years back doing a show where this particular actor it was imperative that she found her light. She had to find her light. It was a pinpoint spot, and the opening night, bless her, she was half in and half out, and I was like, oh, bless her.
I watched there was a production of Cyrano de Bergerac, and my girlfriend at the time was a stage manager, and I was helping her just get props from, by the way, the sword prop house at the National Theatre. They struggled to get me out of there, but we were watching it, and she's stage manager, and I went to watch the night that they forgot Cyrano, and they at the Bridal Theatre is a Victorian swimming pool underneath, so they can use the underneath amazingly. And the baker, his bakery was down into the set, and like when the came up, the you could see the flames from the baker. It was amazing, beautiful set. Anyway, of course, one of the actors forgot to put the baker's thing down, and doing this whole sword fight. And I just watched that, and I kind of was really tense. And then I just sort of sat back, and just thought, I'm just going to enjoy what's about to happen, I think. And they just went down, but they went down with no kind of just grabbing sides. they just went down into the bakers, and you just the noises that came out, and the audience like, but the audience are like, was that supposed to happen? The actors were so brilliant; they made it look as though that was supposed to happen. But I think one of them like cracked a rib, and the other one like put their shoulder out, and like, oh my god, it was unreal.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, and you can kind of hear other people around that are in the production go,
you feel that everyone tense up. I think even as a designer, I mean, I sit and I watch other shows or I watch films or whatever, and you can't take your brain out. You can't. It's quite hard, I think, to switch off. So you'll always, for example, I don't want to, but you'll notice if a hem's slightly down. But then that's the same with anyone who works in wardrobe or anyone who does what I do. I think you'll just always notice if something's just not quite right. You're like, okay, yeah. So yeah, it's. I think one of the other things as well that you find yourself doing, and as any creative I think will do, is we'll sit watching like opening night and just going, oh, I really wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that. And actually that's something that's quite hard to train out of yourself, because perfection isn't real. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It's literally no such thing.
You can strive for it, but never expect to hit it.
Never expect it, and you're never going to get it. And it's really interesting, because the amount of people that I still have to sort of explain that concept to, it's like, you can't, it won't it's just, you know, we'll get as near as damned it as we can do. But
did you ever do Zing Went the Strings on QM2?
Absolutely, it was my favorite show.
So I had to start that show because of my quick changes with 7 pairs of socks on. It was the only way I could do it, because which I love. That's how precise Belinda King did those shows, that she wanted a different color pair of socks for each thing, rightly so. But the only way I could do it, so I would just strip my socks off throughout, had elastic on my shoes and stuff.
I know it well, James.
Oh my God.
Well.
But this one night, it was the bit, I can't remember the song, but we were wearing white gloves, the boater hat, and the sort of really nice suit and stuff. I can't remember. It was a duet the 2 boys sang. Anyway, I had someone dressing me, blah, blah, blah. And it was so, I mean, I think maybe 45 seconds for a full costume change. I think that was like something like entire costume. I used to stand there and people would just, my hands were so sweaty. I put them into the glove, and we come out, we're supposed to shake hands. And I kind of came out like this, and it just had the floppy fingers with the other thing. He couldn't sing a note from there on in. That was it, because I shook his hand. He was just, and it was an absolute disaster.
Just very good. I'll give you my quick story on that one as well, because I know the show very, very well. But that was the one show where we'd been in St. Lucia on the beach, and I burnt my feet. And as you just put out, that entire show is stripping socks on and off and putting shoes on, ring quick changes. So I remember that vividly, and the agonizing pain of the whole thing. Just really, the other thing that really works well with ships is quick changes, and you learn as a performer, but also from my point of view as well, is what you need to do to lay that change out. Which, if you're a performer in any way, shape, or form, and get the chance to do a ship show that does like a multi-show, like 3 shows and a couple of bumpers and so on, do it, because you will learn so much. Much. You'll never be scared of a panto quick change or anything.
Oh no, as an actor, when I had quick changes, I would go just into the theatre, lay everything out myself, and just go through it time and time again, and to work out what I could do and then what I needed help with, but like 2 or 3 times after I'd done it, prior to doing it, because it's a real fine art. We have a question before we move on to the next section. This is a great question actually, Mark, thank you. Have you ever created design for a show that started off as one thing but ended up as something completely different to how you imagined as a result of cost or time or similar?
Yes, this year actually. bizarrely. I've been really lucky so far in my career, because basically most of the time the things that I present on the first day are like, oh yeah, we'll do that, great, and carry on with it. So I count myself very, very lucky. But I was working on a Romeo and Juliet at the beginning of this year that was a sort of 1950s Italian sort of mafiosa feel. It was to have a video wall at the back, and they wanted a sort of a structure in front of it that would have a balcony, that would have like all of these sort of bits and pieces. And the budget was given to me and all of that sort of stuff. And as a designer, you should always be, you know, wary of a budget and sort of know what's going on. And so I designed a full kind of classical revival structure with pillars and all the like, and a high-level gantry, and, you know, all the bells and whistles. And it had, so for the market scene, there were canopies hidden inside the cornice that kind of rolled out and did stuff and everything. And I remember taking it to my first meeting, and because, as I said, I'm normally quite all right with my first designs, I was feeling quite confident with it, and they were like, no, no, it's not right. And I went, oh goodness. And so I really had to work with that one. And I went, oh, okay, fine. And then it sort of aspired that we might have to scale it down because of cost and so on and so forth. And so I ended up, it was really cool, actually. Unfortunately, because of coronavirus, it's not happening now. But it ended up with the same set, the same sort of columned, balustraded thing, but all done in welded steel with mesh.
Oh wow!
So you can see through it, and it took on this like really awesome, like Batman-esque kind of feel, which was actually incredible. So really good in the end. And again that took my initial ideas of something almost realistic in its concept through to something completely different, where it was really sort of conceptual. And there was going to be like a polished gloss floor, and all the costumes took a slightly different stint as well in that one as well. So we went from sort of quite traditional 50s silhouettes to sort of 50s mixed with a little bit of Renaissance with a slight punky, you know, futuristic edge. Which, yeah, so that would have been, that's the one I can think of off the top of my head.
Love that. As a designer looking at coronavirus and the pandemic, it must be something that's at the forefront of your mind, of how you can now create costumes in a way that people feel protected on stage. Is that a thing for you? Like, you know, come from it. Is that something that you think about a lot? Is that something on your mind as a designer?
It is now. I mean, I've always I've never been a fan of people sharing costume. It's not a particular something I feel particularly happy about. However, it is a necessity sometimes, and I've always been happy with people sharing outer items. So, for example, if you've got a double cast, and of course this happens a lot in drama schools. So, if you've got a double cast and they you know, it's fine for them to share a coat. That's fine. It's just when you actually, you know, the other bits and pieces that need to be done. I think now especially because I do a couple of drama schools, it's very much at the forefront of the design. And I think going back to what we were talking about at the beginning about communication, I think it's going to be a lot more about, well, actually, yes, I understand that you want them all in full Victorian ball gowns. However, we can't because it's got to be shared. So therefore, let's look at a more inventive way of doing this. Funny enough, I'm working on a Little Women at the moment, you know, the musical Little Women.
Brilliant.
Love it. Which we've completely taken in a different direction. So it's a very modern look. It's still with an edge of the sort of the Victorian, but we've gone much more for a really sort of layered look, which means that stuff, anything that needs to be washed can be washed and then dried in time for the show. Other things can be steamed, you know, because I haven't actually yet read the Royal Opera House costume guide, because they've done an entire tome of costume maintenance and how it works. Because of course in the ballet, the Royal Ballet, and in actual fact any ballet company in the whole world, it's normal for between 3 to 4 people to share one outfit. So I'll be really interested to see how that affects them. But normally we would use steam and something like a vodka spray or Zaflora or something to kind of kill anything living in it. So, but yeah, I think it really has, it's very prevalent now. And when I started to design again Little Women, at the start of the process, it was about, from a set point of view as well, how can you maintain a meter's distance if needs be? How can we stop bottlenecks into, you know, doorways? How can we work with this? And whilst I wouldn't say it's been fun, it's definitely been quite an eye-opener, because you find yourself looking at things with completely different eyes, you know, especially, like I said, when it comes to doorways and the widths of doorways and, you know, the narrowness of a certain corridor, or, you know, if you've got to get 25 people on a stage to do something, how do you get 25 people on there without, if you don't have a stage the size of the Royal Opera Houses, which is marked in boxes, you know, it's that's sort of thing.
Budgets. So how on earth, when someone sits down, let's say, I don't know, like a production of Carousel, which has a, you know, let's go a traditional production of Carousel, fairly hefty cast, you know, lots of costume. How do you sit down? Where does it, do you go, right, well, basically it's a tenner a costume. You got 50 costumes. There we go. How do you budget costumes? Like set, I can sort of get my head around, but how do you go? Do you have to go away and go, that costume is going to cost that, that's going to cost that? Where do you begin?
So, first of all, you look at what you're doing, as in you look at the level at which you're working. So if you're working on a fringe project, if you're working on mid-scale, if you're working on something quite large, and that always bears a sort of a, what's the word? You have to take that into consideration. I think the thing that really fascinates me with this is people, I'm just going to say it, producers don't take into consideration how much the outfit they're wearing cost.
Right.
So that's literally, you go, okay, can you please tell me how much every single thing, you know, the total of what you're wearing, how much did you spend on that? There you go. That's what you need per person. And I have on occasion used that in a nicer way, not so blunt and to the point. But yeah, it's when I budget a fringe production, and again, it depends if it's modern, if it's period, and where it is. You know, you'll be able to conjure up a rough idea, and that comes again from working and working and working and working. One of the big producing houses had, I don't know if this is still true, but this was told to me by a supervisor of theirs a couple of years back. They budgeted based on £1,000 per person per costume. And that's how they did it. So they would work out a budget that way, because that would then include your shoes, that would include your underwear, that would include all of those different bits and pieces. And it would also take into account, so for example, if you were doing, I don't know, let's pick Evita, for instance. You know, you're set in an era where I can't just go to Topshop or Primark or somewhere and pick something off the rack. It all has to be made. So therefore you go, right, well, that is £1,000 per person per costume, knowing that then from that you can spread, you know, you can rob from Peter to pay Paul, as it were. So you'll know that you'll need £2,500 to make that one outfit. So therefore you need to steal from other people, but you know that you can get those bits for, you know, if we're talking about Evita, you know, like the throng, as it were, you know that that's going to maybe cost you £100-200. So you can sort of rob from, take and move all those numbers around. And
that's why, like, when I've been in big shows, West End shows, and done cast change, and you kind of, it's the freakiest thing. You come down the stairs, the old cast have left, a few of you are still in it, and you look down the corridor for the scene that you're about to go on for, and you look and you go, oh my God, it's like everyone that was here before, but not. They're all the same shape, size, and everything. And you hear about shows that have been running a long time that, you know, basically the costumes are made. And that's because of, if you imagine, I don't know, let's say a show like, I don't know, Les Mis or something like that, where they may, you know, some characters might have 5 or 6 costumes.
Yeah.
Let's say cast of 20. It's not possible to do a brand new costume budget every single time, maybe for 1 or 2 people, but not for an entire cast. You can't be looking at, you know, 20,000 times 6 every single year. That's just, it's just not.
No, it doesn't happen. I mean, from some of the bigger houses, like you will, with a revival or with a recast, the supervisor who deals with it will be given a budget. They will be given a revival budget, but most of the time, and I can only come at this really from opera and ballet, that will go on your principal cast. So your principals would be made new. Now that isn't always the case, because, you know, you might have something in stock that with a little alteration will fit perfectly. But yeah, it's an expensive business. It is one of those interesting ones that people don't seem to fully appreciate, which is why, again, like I say, I like to use the how much have you spent on what you're wearing now, from the floor to the top, you know, and then let's have that conversation. And I think it's also nice as well to be able to go into a meeting now and be able to say to someone that the money that they have is not enough to do what they want, and actually to engage in that conversation. Because I think sometimes, like I said, people are slightly reticent to have conversations like that, like we were talking about at the beginning, where it might seem that you can't do the job, and it's like, well, actually, no, I can quite easily do the job, but we need to talk about the limitations that we will face, and we can either talk about it now or we can talk about it later down the line when we won't be able to do anything about it, really. So it sort of goes back to that.
Daniel has a question. What to get your hands on and completely change what has previously been before with it? What would you do with it?
Goodness.
Start with what's the show that you kind of go? I mean, I saw a production of The King and I. I have not the budget would have been for The King and I. I mean,
absolutely ridiculous.
I know, like the Disney Aladdin, that one scene where I think it cost that one scene was £1 million, I believe, or something like that, for when the cast go off. You know, and they keep coming through, and it's the scene where they're coming, you know, Aladdin's bringing all these people in from all over, and they just keep coming and coming and coming. I think they spent around about $1 million on that alone. Never mind.
Can I give you my fun story that probably a lot of people know, because probably anyone watching this will know it, but it just still makes me smile, is the I can't remember the name, in Phantom, the theatre manager's wife who does the crossover just before the dressing room scene. But her dress, her evening dress that she sits in the box and claps, is one of the most expensive dresses in the entire show, and is seen for that one walk across that she does. And I think that's the reason why they make her do it. That she takes a curtain call in it, because it's really, really expensive. But yeah,
did you ever do this as an actor?
Pardon?
Did you ever do Thursford as a performer?
No.
Oh my gosh, because the costume budget for that, we did, one of the years I was there, we did Masquerade, and it was one song, Masquerade. It wasn't even, I don't think it was even the full song, and every single person was in full Masquerade, made for each individual person.
Yeah.
I think his costume budget is around $1 million for the whole show, something like that. It was unbelievable. I mean, I take hats off to it. So yeah, what show out there is like, oh, if I could get my hands on that one, that is the show. A revival, something that's on now, it doesn't matter. What do you want?
So I'm quite bad at these sorts of questions, because I'm not very but I'll try my best. I can do shows quite quickly. Bucket list shows. Funny enough, we were talking about it yesterday. I'd love to do Ragtime.
Right.
I mean, that is my idea of heaven. I would also love to do Showboat. I would
say Showboat. My God.
Because where else apart from there's an old Howard play, and I think it's called Cavalcade, that does like 50 years, like 5 decades of a family. I think it's Cavalcade. But like Showboat starts in 1860, it goes right the way up to 1920. And I remember the Prince Edward production. I don't know if you saw the Prince Edward production with the...
Yeah, I didn't, because I was away, but it was, I think it was a cast of 50 or something, wasn't it?
Mind blown. And literally the whole thing did go from 1870 right the way up to like 1920. And it was like every second there was something there. So I would love to do Showboat. I would love to do Ragtime. I would love to do City of Angels, as in I've done it once for one of the drama schools. It's one of my favorite shows. And oh goodness, I think they're sort of 3. They're like a top 3. Yeah. When it comes to what I would do with it, I don't know. Because obviously everything that I come up with normally comes from a director. So a director will bring me a concept. All I know is that if I was doing Ragtime or Showboat, I would want it to be so like historically bang on the end. I mean, that would be dreamy.
You've been working with, through lockdown, you've been working with drama schools for their NVS shows or productions. Who have you been working with?
So I, as lockdown fell, I was just about to do Urinetown for Birmingham, Ormiston Academy, and I was midway through Greece. We were actually just about to start. That day was the day that me and my team were due to start building the model for Greece for Guildhall, which was their big summer musical. Urinetown was an interesting one because, bless them, the theatre arts students had built the set. It's a huge false proscenium in rusted pipe work. It had, doors and level with doors underneath it, all this pipe work, all this neon tubing in it that kind of signposted which of the locations it was. And we were going into the old rep because they do a lot of their stuff in the old rep. Right. And then the old rep closed because of the announcement, but nothing had been said about schools. So bless them, the team picked that setup, moved it to Ormiston Academy, rebuilt it floor as well, because it had a paint. They painted the stage, so they repainted the floor. Oh. In there, I think they got a very large studio theatre, so they rebuilt it. And on the day we started tech, that was it. They closed the schools.
Oh my gosh!
I think Steve, who's the director, managed to get like a few cast members running around it for about 3 hours, I think. But Guildhall was a fascinating one, actually, and it really just shows the sort of problem solving and how we problem solve in today's age with the technology and things that we have available to us, because we took the entire project and did it digitally. It was the most insane experience. It was, when I say insane, not as a bad thing, it was wow. Incredible. It was just to take a show that had been spoken about in physical form at white carve meetings, at production meetings, to then take all of that work and do it based on the fact that it would never happen physically is kind of crazy, but also kind of cool at the same time. So we ended up. Sorry, yeah, go for it. Oh, sorry, James, you just broke up there. I didn't hear what you said.
You carry on.
So we, Martin Connor, the director, and I were tasked with finding 20 minutes. We did 20 minutes of Grease, and so we picked a section of Act 1 and a section of Act 2, and put them together. And then the construction team built the set, but in CAD. The LX team, Charlie Morgan Jones, who lit it with him, they did all of the LX within this computer program, which I think is quite prevalent now. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And then props, built all of the props either in CAD or they built them in like 1:25 scale. and then pixel map them basically with their phones. They did like 360 things with their phones. There's an app on your phone that will take a 3D kind of reading of anything, and then that was all sent in. Scenic Art did it with painting. They would paint certain things, scan them, send them, and then it was all sent to a huge company in Germany called Build, who then built this entire show almost as a cutscene. You know, when you get a cutscene in a video game, and it was built like that. With tons of avatars. Each time an avatar came in, it would be clothed in the costume design, and
wow,
bonkers. But it was really surreal, because if people watched it who didn't know anything about it, they would be like, what is this? But for us to sit back and just say, you know, no one met face to face on that whatsoever. Like, no one. We all did it over Zoom, over Teams, over phone calls, WhatsApp messages, and we created this piece of digital theatre, which was amazing. And it was kind of cool as well, because I set myself the task of learning how to do a lot more 3D like CAD work over lockdown, and I'm actually now doing it. It's great. There are moments where I want to throw things at the screen, but on the most part, it's done really well. So they really moved with the times, and they really did some amazing things. I don't know if it's still on there, but the operas they did before us, they did an opera double bill. So if anyone's interested, go onto the Guildhall website and see, because I think they might still be on there. They did a similar thing with these two operas, where they sent cameras to the cast and they filmed themselves singing it, and then they were put onto avatars and moved around a design. It was astounding, absolutely brilliant.
I'm absolutely dumbstruck. How incredible for a designer, especially costume design, when you're now potentially having to think it digitally in terms of like, okay, they're going to be seen on screen, so it's going to be, even though it's theatrical, it's still screen.
Yeah.
So is that now a new thing for you to be thinking about, or is it just like, it doesn't matter, it will still work? Because I imagine that you've got to think about colors. I would imagine you've got to think about things that make the screen go weird, and you know, is it different? Am I wrong, or are you thinking slightly differently?
I don't think I, to be honest, I don't think I am. I think everything's pretty much the same. The sort of principles of design and the color palettes and everything that you use, from my point of view, still stays the same. I mean, look at, for example, Ratchet, the new Ryan on Netflix. You know, the color choices and that are so bold and so striking. And so I think from a filming point of view, I would hope, and again, I've not really done it, so I don't know, but I would hope that I would be able to talk a lot with the DOP, the director as well, and just have some insight into what sort of things make a camera go crazy, because I genuinely don't know. But I mean, the thing is, we always do, even on stage costume, everything is, the devil is in the detail, as they say. So everything is always wrapped up with, you know, the back, the joys of the maker saying, "Can I have a back view, please?" and your heart sinking. But you know, you'll always, you know, think about, you know, an actor as a 360.
I just lost you on that. Your heart goes when somebody says, "Can I have a?" and I just lost you.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, you sort of have a moment where a maker says, "Oh, can I have a back view?" and you go, "Oh, okay, fine," because there's another set of designs you got to do. But you know, for pretty much, you have to think of these people as, you know, actors move around the stage, they turn their backs to the audience, they keep going. You still have to keep, you know, everything has to be right. I just think as we go more into, if we are going more into a digital filmic world, the amount of detail that we might put on a costume might go up. You'd be amazed. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching this will have seen a theatre costume, for example, from the Royal Opera House or from the National, up close, and you'll be amazed at the detailing in them. But I think as we'll go into more of this digital world, a lot of other sort of places will start to up that game as well, because the detail needs to be there. Otherwise, you'll end up with some quite sort of flat garments, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Ratchet, the colours and the costume design in that are absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the program, just go on if you're interested in costume design. Just one episode. just watch one episode and just see the colours and how just the way they've just the rooms and what they've done there with like the doctor's office and that waiting room and everything. It's just exquisite. It's really mind blowing.
One of the things I found quite interesting about that was I've read a couple of interviews and sort of articles on that piece, is the collaboration. And it's so important. The collaboration is so important. Again, going back to the communication, the talking, that Ryan Murphy will go to his team and he basically has a color palette in mind. As the sort of producer, writer, he'll say, this is the color palette that I want. And then when the costume designers were working on it, they would constantly be going into the production design offices and looking at the colors that they were choosing for the various rooms, like the carpet swatches and the wall colors, because that also tells a story. And I think one of the interesting things that I always forget is that if I do come into a project where I am just doing one strand, I'm doing like the costume design or the set design, it becomes, I really have to remember to have those conversations more, because normally when I do a design, I have conversations in my head, because it's like, oh, hang on, you can't be that color because the ceiling's that color, so you've got to change that. But whereas obviously when you're doing one strand, that has to come forward. You've got to keep communicating with everyone. We
don't have a massive amount of time left, but one question I wanted to know in terms of design. When you design, so you have the design of set and you have the design of costume in mind. Is that set, and then you say to the lighting designer, right, this is what we're going with. Can you design your palette around that and how that looks? Or does the lighting designer influence what the design of the stage, the final piece will be?
So in my experience, and I know obviously everyone will have their different ways of working, and also if creative teams are, have worked well together and they've worked together on a lot of projects before, this will probably change, but it will always come from me. So the concept sketches will be done, and within those concept sketches, you'll obviously put in anything that is illuminated, sort of practicals. You'll give an idea potentially of the direction that light is going. That's sometimes put into concept sketches. And then once you start, once an idea has been signed off, for want of a better phrase, then I like to work with an LD almost instantly, because lighting, like sound, can make or break a production. And I think it's really important that at the end of the day, you are part of a creative team. So the whole thing is a team effort, and everyone has to be going forward in the same direction for the project, going in the same way. And so everyone needs to be feeding in. And going back again to what we started with about people talking about things and not being afraid to ask questions, that's one of the things at that time. That's one of the good times to start asking questions, saying, well, what can I do this? Can we use this? Can we put LED strip on that? Can we have a thingy floor? Can we, and that's when those questions will start. But from an aesthetic point of view, it all comes from the designer. And then I'll also do like a mood board that will have sort of LX images or images of light and stuff with it as well.
Last thing, one piece, and it has to be one piece of advice for anyone going forward. I know we've probably covered it, but just if it's something we've already said, great. One piece of advice to a new designer on their journey to become a theatre designer, set designer, costume designer. What's your advice?
It is one piece, but it has a sort of an appendix attached to it. Is to go out and do it. That's my piece of advice. Literally, that what is the worst that can happen? If you want to go and you want to do, just do it. Don't be afraid to explore, especially if you're a performer, don't be afraid to explore, all of those other areas in your field, because you'll be amazed at what all of those people do. And by listening to them and observing them, you'll become more rounded as a person, as it were, or as a performer, but also as a designer. You just take the jump, and don't be afraid to ask for help, and be nice to everyone. Just literally say please and thank you. It's so easy. It's so simple, but so many people struggle.
Respect people.
Yeah, respect. It's all about respect. And you know, people like me always say it, and people always roll their eyes. But you would be amazed if that one person that you were, you know, not nice to will probably come up again at some point, and the situation could be, you know, dreadful. So just get on with everyone. But yeah, that would be my one thing, is just to go out and do it. And remember, I can't draw, but that's another thing for another time. So you don't have to draw to be a designer.
Stewart, you have been outstanding. What a fantastic Q&A to start the day off with. Thank you from everyone watching. Thank you for your time. I'm going to take you out the live stream, and so don't go anywhere, but I will take you out. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, James.
What a great start to the day. I hope you found that as energizing, informative. I learned so much. What I love about these sessions, by the way, is sometimes Rosie and I put sessions on because we want to learn as well. So we're like, oh, let's learn about that. And it's just so important to learn about other people's roles within our community. It really is. We spoke about it yesterday, which actually I think every Q&A we've ever done, we've spoken about the importance of learning what somebody else does within, like if it's theatre, within the theatre, what it means, what it takes, because I think we will be a happier community and we'll be nicer to each other as well. Coming up at 12, we have a vocal health check-in with Rhiannon Jenkins. Thank you so much to Stewart. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. And we